All right, now y'all can hear me. Okay, let me get it together. Let me set up here right quick. Put the ones in the chat if y'all can hear me clearly. Put a one in the chat if y'all can hear me clearly. Y'all should be able to hear me now. Oh, a little bit of a lag behind. There we go. All right. We got the folks tuning in on Instagram. If you're showing too much content at the same time, okay. All right, we don't know what that's about. But boom, all right, we here. I'm live on Instagram, TikTok. Hopefully we got the comments and whatnot that can pop up here. So we're just gonna wait for folks to funnel on in. What's that say? Pop in. Oh, there we go. All right. Let me get to this here. And I am going to... Okay, there we go. Display capture. So we're gonna take this and turn that off. All right, there we go. Okay. What's going on, Anna? Good to see you in here. We got the folks live on we're on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube right now. Man, the glories of technology, huh? So we got the ones in the chat here. Y'all can hear me clearly. There we go. All right. Cali girl, what's going on? I saw your thing pop up too earlier about you in Panama. I got to take a look at that video that you put up. I saw that earlier today while I was putting things together for tonight's stream. Delightful days. What's going on? Good to see you in here. All right. And Navalisa, what's going on? I hope I said that right. Welcome to the stream. Mama Duke's in here. G. Ellis, what's going on? Welcome. Good to see y'all in here. All right. So I gotta do my due diligence, toggling back and forth here. So I'm juggling quite a few things here. But so tonight, basically, I'm gonna show y'all what I got tonight. Come on. So this is what I got here. Got my big old bowl of food here. I couldn't really get this meal in before the stream, so I'm gonna have to be chowing down on the stream. Which you know, it's all good. You know what I'm saying? It's the holiday week, right, folks? It's out for July 4th and all of that. But yeah, so I got chopped mushrooms, bell peppers, tomatoes, onions, kasha, cashews, and spring mix in here, right? So basically a fully raw meal here. Nice hefty salad, you know. I done loaded the bowl up tonight. I done loaded it up. As you should. So this is seasoned with tomato sauce, taco seasoning, paprika, cayenne pepper, what else? Sea salt, nutritional yeast. Got quite a few things going on. Tribe Melody, what's going on? Good to see you in here. 24K Dreamer, what's going on? Good to see you in here. Yes, yes. All right, so tonight we're talking about the plant-based con, right? This was something I found a little while ago. Trisha, what's going on? Good to see you in here. How you doing, by the way? That's right. I loaded the bowl up. This is basically. You love my accent. What kind of accent do I have? Haven't seen me in a while. Yeah, basically, I'm gonna be here on TikTok pretty much every Monday night. That's what I'm doing here. I don't necessarily have a recipe book, but I do have my recipes up for tribe members. But yeah, essentially all I did was I got this big old bowl. I soaked some kasha. Soaked it for a few hours. Actually, I soaked it yesterday. And then I heated it up with warm water. I soaked it in warm water and then drained it. I put it in here. I put some chopped spring mix, cashews, diced onion, mushroom, bell pepper. Seasoned it up. You know what I mean? The taco seasoning, the chili powder, paprika, cayenne pepper, sea salt, nutritional yeast. A little bit of raw sugar cane to add a little bit of sweetness to the sauce. I add some tomato sauce. And that's what I got going on, right? So this is a banging bowl. I mean, this one meal contains like pretty much all, like It hits every micronutrient that we need. I mean, zinc, iron, copper, chromium, magnesium, manganese, potassium, calcium. I mean, it hits everything. Iron, all the B vitamins, vitamin C, full amino acid profile. I mean, pretty much everything is covered in this meal right here. This is how I get down. So yeah, basically, I have this big meal here. Before this, I ate like 7 bananas. Before that, I had my chocolate oat pudding with a 1/4 cup of hemp seeds, 1 ounce of roasted sunflower seed kernels. Yeah. Miss D, what's going on? Good to see you in here. Smart Girl Chronicles, what's going on? That's right, I gotta give you a bigger picture of what I got here. So this is just a straight up raw. It's not, I mean, I guess technically you can call it a salad. I should have added a cucumber to this. Well, with a big bowl like this, I could have also added avocado and cucumber, right? The cool thing too is the fact that like with a meal like this, like let's say this was going to be like a nighttime meal and I really mainly just wanted to get all of my fats in, I would remove the kasha and I would just have I would just have hemp seeds, sunflower seed kernels, cashews, the spring mix, diced cucumber, bell pepper, onions, diced mushrooms, avocado. I think I would add, what else would I add to this? I would probably add basil to this. I would add a diced tomato, like things like that to it. And then just season it how I would everything else. Who eats too much junk food? Do you know what could be causing me to have ventricular trigeminy? I know I'm not saying that right. I would have to know more about what you eat. But basically, I know if you got any kind of heart issues, chances are you probably have a substantial amount of saturated fat, cooking oils in your diet. You know what I mean? Maybe some excess processed foods, lack of fiber, chronically dehydrated. There's a lot of different things that can contribute to that. Do I eat raw rice? Oh, absolutely not. No, I don't eat raw rice. We don't do that. Absolutely not. All right, let's get into the topic here. Let's get into the topic. Folks, like the stream if you like the stream. All right, let me lower this music here. Let's get serious. Just a tad bit. That's my jam too, so I don't want to lower it too much. All right, y'all. We got to talk about the plant-based con. There's a lady that I found. She wrote a book called The Plant-Based Con, with the great plant-based con, right? And you know, she made a lot of claims about how, you know, a plant-based diet is deficient. Plant-based diet is deficient. There's all the stuff missing from it. It's unaffordable. It's bad for the environment, right? So she's got all types of criticisms, right? So basically, I came across this interview that she did. It was a brief interview, but she was being interviewed about her book, right? Now, a lot of these people where, they have all type of smoke for a plant-based diet, and usually, they're big on eating meat, right? They're often connected to animal agriculture, right? They're funded by beef farmers and companies like that. So, they either deny any type of climate change or environmental damage, or they blame it on growing crops, corn and wheat and things like that, and they blame it on that, right? So a lot of them are keto advocates or carnivore advocates, and they come up with some book saying all the reasons why a vegan diet will destroy your life. A plant-based diet will destroy your life. It'll kill your kids. You'll be scrawny and weak and miserable, right? And they paint this disastrous picture of why you need meat so desperately in your life because the plant-based diet is just so hazardous. And they all go on the same podcasts, right? There's this little media ecosystem. And all of these podcasts, they're all like keto advocates, carnivore advocates, and all the doctors they bring on are like chiropractors and psychiatrists and general practitioners and things like that, right? None of them are like nutritionists. They're all, they're all in something else, but none of them are like nutritionists or anything like that, right? But they got all of this smoke for a plant-based diet, and they all hop around to the same podcast, right? So there's this big media campaign that they push against, big broccoli, right? Big spinach, the spinach lobby, the apples and bananas lobby, the kiwi lobby. Because, we have this nefarious one world government that wants us to live on a diet of lab-grown meats and Beyond Burgers, right? They want to take our meat from us. They want to criminalize eating double bacon cheeseburgers, right? And how are we going to be healthy without our double bacon cheeseburgers, right? So I saw the interview and I said, well, I want to take a look at this. But what I want to do is I wanted to share this with y'all. I wanted to share my thoughts with y'all about this, right, on the stream tonight. And I figured we keep it light tonight. You know what I'm saying? We got at least here in the States, right, we have this holiday called July 4th, which everybody's very excited about. It's a big vacation week, right? Not for me. July 4th doesn't really have to do anything with me, but you know what I mean? It is what it is. Like, my holiday, the way that I feel about Juneteenth is the way that, most of America may feel about July 4th, right? So I'm gonna pull that up in a second, right? So give me a second here. Give me a second here. Let me bring this video up. Boom, that's me. All right. Now let's bring this video up. Let's see what they have to say.
One of my favorite books in recent years is called The Great
By the way, can y'all hear that clearly? Do I need to turn the volume up on this video, or is that good? Let me know. Put a 1 in the
Plantbased
chat.
Con by Jane Buxton. Why eating a plants-only diet won't improve your health or save the planet. Now,
Can y'all hear that clearly? Not only will a plant-based diet not improve your health, right? It won't improve your health, but it's also harmful to the environment. I want to play that one more time. But yeah, put a 1 in the chat if y'all can hear that clearly, if it's loud enough. All right, we got some yeses in the chat. Here we go. We got some yeses. All right. Cycling through. You said you can't hear it? What about over here on the TikToks? We folks are saying they can't hear it? Can't hear anything. Hold on, let me address this. Hold on 1 second, because the folks over on TikTok can't hear it. So let me Let me see what's going on here. Y'all should be able to hear it. Y'all can't hear the video, but y'all can hear me. That's interesting. Hold on a second. I'm going to play it one more time. Let me know if y'all can hear this for the folks over on TikTok.
One of my favorite books in recent years is called The Great Plant-Based Con by Jane Buxton. Why eating a plants-only diet won't improve your health or save the planet. Now, I really appreciate this book, and I brought it up several times on Redacted, and we've invited the author, Jane Buxton, to come on, and she graciously accepted.
Gotcha. Okay. So hold on. This is what I'm going to do. I think I figured out what the problem is. So hold on one second. Let me run it back. All right, hold on. I think
one of my favorite books in recent years is called The Great Plant-Based Con by Jane Buxton. Why eating a plants-only diet won't improve your health or save the planet. Now, I really appreciate this book, and I brought it up several times on Redacted, and we've invited the author, Jane Buxton, to come on, and she graciously accepted. This is her first time on Redacted, so thank you so much for joining.
All right, so thank you for everybody for being patient with me. You said it's echoing? Uh-oh. Hold on a second, it's echoing. Uh-oh. It's echoing on Instagram and YouTube. Uh-oh. Let me see how I can fix this. Let me see how I can fix this. Hold on. All right, so I gotta be skilled. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna take this, drag it over here. Boom, boom. I think I fixed it, but just give me 1 second. I'll run it back one more time.
One of my favorite books in recent years is called The Great Plant-Based Con by Jane Buxton. Why eating a plants-only diet won't improve your health or save the planet. Now, I really appreciate this book, and I brought it up several times on Redacted, and we've invited the author, Jane Buxton, to come on, and she graciously accepted. This is her first time on Redacted, so thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's good to talk to you.
You as well. Now, my own...
Oh, that's brutal. All right, hold on. We're going to fix this for future reference. I just have to figure out... See, there's no way for me to trial run this beforehand. So, I think what I'll have to do is this. Let me go into my audio settings. So I'm going to my audio settings here. Let's see if I can go. Let's see if I can make this right. Give me 1 second. Hold on. All right, maybe that fixes it. We'll see.
Sort of, I guess, philosophy is that not eating animal-based foods makes me personally feel terrible.
I'm juggling a lot of things,
and eating more processed food exacerbates that. But you lay out exactly all of the ways that we are sold meatless diets based on a bill of goods. And I wanted to ask you to go over it for our
put a
audience.
1 in the chat if there's no echo, or just
first
say no
of all,
echo if
the
no echo
planet business, that eating
good.
Meat is bad for the planet.
Any
You
echo
take
on
that
Instagram, it's good.
and poke a billion holes in that.
Crisp.
And I think it's really, it reads almost like a fiction novel because
No
you do
sound
such a
on
great
TikTok.
job. So can you
Oh my
address
God.
the climate-based
Oh,
lie?
that's brutal. They won't let me do it. They won't let me have it. All right, hold on. All right. Hold on a second. They won't let me do it. I don't know. That's not fair. How's the echo? Come on now.
Plant-Based Con by Jane Buxton. Why eating a plants-only diet won't improve your health or save the planet. Now, I really appreciate this book, and I brought it up several times on Redacted, and we've invited the author, Jane Buxton, to come on, and she graciously accepted. This is her first time on Redacted, so thank you so much for joining us.
No sound.
Thank you for having me.
You know
it's
what?
Good to talk to you.
You as well.
I'm gonna have to troubleshoot this online. I mean, I'm gonna have to troubleshoot this at another time, but so basically I kind of have to choose. So the thing is that I gotta hear what y'all are hearing on TikTok. So what y'all hear, I don't know how to fix that. Because y'all should all hear. So basically, hold on one second, because if I do this now. So basically, y'all should be hearing everything that I'm hearing, and you should all be hearing it differently. Like there shouldn't be a difference in how you hear it. So for example, all right, the primary audio. So I'm going to change my primary audio here, and I'm going to change it to, I think I figure out the problem here. I want to make all things work. I'm gonna make all things work. Is any problem, I can fix any problem ever. Or at least you're gonna have to really work to prove that I can't make it work. I believe I can. So give me 1 second here. Okay, so y'all can hear, now that's interesting. Primary mic, audience mic, so y'all can hear me through there. I don't understand why it's not selecting for the audio there. So basically, you know what y'all might have to do? Y'all might have to go and watch on YouTube. That's what might have to happen. Until I figure this out later, because I don't want to drag this out for too long to the point where, because I haven't really identified what the problem is yet. So, because basically,
now my own sort of
because they're saying on TikTok
philosophy is that not eating animal-based foods makes me personally feel terrible, and eating more processed food exacerbates that. But you lay out exactly all of the ways that we are sold meatless diets based on a bill of goods, and I wanted to ask you to go over it for our audience. First of all, the planet business, that eating meat is bad for the planet. You take that and poke a billion holes in that. And I think it's really, it reads almost like a fiction novel because you do such a great job. So can you address the climate-based lie?
So basically, let's continue. Yeah, I know. So y'all can hear me, but you see, that's the thing, y'all can't. So yeah, basically what I'm gonna do is what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to figure this out. Y'all can hear me, but I'm playing the video. Y'all can't hear the video. So like for example, on TikTok, y'all can't hear this.
That tells us not to eat meat.
Well, the main underlying premise of
one of my favorite books in recent years is called The Great Plant-Based Con by Jane Buxton. Why eating a plants-only diet won't improve your health or save the planet. Now, I really appreciate this book, and I brought it up several times on Redacted, and we've invited the author, Jane Buxton, to come on, and she graciously accepted. This is her first time on Redacted, so thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's good to talk to you.
You as well. Now, my own
sort of, video on TikTok.
I guess, philosophy is that not eating animal-based foods makes me personally feel terrible, and eating more processed food exacerbates that. But you lay out exactly all of the ways that we are sold meatless diets based on a bill of goods. And I wanted to ask you to go over it for our audience. First of all, the planet business, that eating meat is bad for the planet.
All right, so let me rewind back. Let me get back on track here. All right, so I had to close out on TikTok. So we're just gonna have to do it on. We're just gonna have to do the 2 streams here, all right? Until I figure out how to do that whole thing. So I got to figure out that tech stuff with that. I don't know what's going on with that. All right, folks, let's get back on track here. Oh, what's going on? Oh. All right.
Now, I really appreciate this book, and I've brought it up several times on.
But y'all can hear. Put a 1 in the chat if y'all can hear it clearly. I'm gonna go and get started here. From the top.
Redacted, and we've invited the author Jane Buxton to come on, and she graciously accepted. This is her first time on Redacted, so thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's good to talk to you.
You as well. Now, my own sort of, I guess, philosophy is that not eating animal-based foods makes me personally feel terrible. And eating more processed food exacerbates that. But you lay out exactly all of the ways that we are sold meatless diets based on a bill of goods. And I wanted to ask you to go over it for our audience. First of all,
Now, when people say this, right? Because now, so what's interesting is, so she says when she doesn't eat animal products, she feels terrible. And then when she eats processed food, she feels even worse. Now, when I talk to people personally, I've never heard anybody say this before. I only hear these people on the internet, right? Which is very interesting. I've never heard anybody come to me and say, hey, I want to eat a plant-based diet, but when I don't eat animal products, I feel terrible. I've never heard anybody say this. Now, what's interesting is the people who make this claim, they never elaborate on what their diet is or what their diet was on a plant-based diet. But then when they tell you, then you realize what the problem is, because they're eating like 300 calories a day, right? Because they're just eating like green smoothies and salads with just a bunch of greens or whatever. They just don't eat enough, and that's why they feel miserable. So what they do is basically they have this very meat-heavy diet where it's all just eggs and meat and whatever, double cheeseburgers, and then they cut that stuff out and then they don't replace it with other foods, right? She never said, no, she said when she doesn't eat meat. I'll play it back again so you can see what I'm saying.
Several times on Redacted, and we've invited the author Jane Buxton to come on, and she graciously accepted. This is her first time on Redacted, so thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's good to talk to you.
You as well. Now, my own sort of, I guess.
Okay, so now she's going to explain what she said. So we'll run it back one more time. Let's see.
Philosophy is that not eating animal-based foods makes me personally feel terrible.
So just not eating animal-based foods makes her feel terrible. Makes her feel terrible. So the next question is, well, what is the nutrient or nutrients in the animal products that when you don't eat it, you feel terrible? Not like a little lethargic or fatigued or hungry or whatever. Terrible. I'd be very interested to know what that is.
And eating more processed food exacerbates that. But you lay out exactly all of the ways that we are sold meatless diets based on a bill of goods. And I wanted to ask you to go over it for our audience. First of all, the planet business, that eating meat is bad for the planet. You take that and poke a billion holes in that. And I think it's really, it reads almost like a fiction novel because you do such a great job. So can you address the climate-based lie that tells us not to eat meat?
Okay, so we're going to see, right? Because when people talk about how eating meat is destructive to the environment, right? Let's see if she touches on like the overfishing, the overgrazing, the deforestation, the pollution and runoff from the waste products from animal agriculture. Let's see if she touches on any of those issues. The greenhouse gases, and let's see if she touches on that. The methane emissions. Let's see.
Well, the main underlying premise of the lie, the big one that we hear about, is emissions most of the time. I mean, sometimes people talk about water use and sometimes they talk about land use, but it's mainly emissions right now because countries around the world are very, very focused on their net zero targets and getting those emissions down in every country and across every industry.
Well, emissions of what? When she says emissions, right? Emissions of what? Now, does it matter the overall amount of emissions? Does it matter what particularly is being emitted? Let's see if she gets a little bit more specific than that.
But what I say in the book, and in fact, even more evidence has come to light since I finished the book, is that the contribution of livestock to those emissions is just wildly exaggerated. I mean, wildly. The exaggeration that is put about, for instance, in mainstream documentaries like Cowspiracy and indeed in much of the press, is that livestock are responsible for about 50% of emissions, and that couldn't be further from the truth. That's an exaggeration of at least 3 times on the official number. Then you get to the fact
it's an exaggeration on 3 times the number. So what is the actual real number? Let's see if she explains that.
But the official number is also an exaggeration, and
so both are an exaggeration. So the claims that people are making about the emissions is exaggerated. It's exaggerated by 3 times what it actually is. But the official number of the overall emissions is also exaggerated. So what's the real number? Because if everybody's wrong and she's right, I'd love to know what evidence she has, or if she elaborates on that. So let's see.
It's exaggerated because we use a metric. Not to get too technical about this, but there's a metric that's being used to calculate it, which unfairly penalizes livestock and underplays the importance of, say, fossil fuel-based industries. So,
oh, wait a minute. So it penalizes. What's interesting, right? It penalizes animal agriculture. She's like, it's not fair. It penalizes animal agriculture. Right, and then it undermines, the oil industry. Interesting. It undermines the fossil fuel industry. Interesting. By the way, animal agriculture and fossil fuels, basically like the primary drivers of our economy. Right. It makes up the bulk of our food system, and it makes up the bulk of our energy production. Fossil fuels and animal products. And those are the ones that, for some reason, she doesn't like those things being checked on their emissions. That's interesting. I wonder what's motivating her to say that. But okay, let's continue. Let's see if she makes her case. She doesn't want to get too technical. Well, you can get a little technical. Let's hear the argument. Because essentially she's saying, nah, that's unfair. All right, well, we got to get a little bit more specific than that. She doesn't like the metric. What metric do you prefer to use?
So those things combined mean we're getting a skewed picture. Now, that doesn't mean that livestock farmers don't have things to do. Every industry has things to do to improve, to make sure that we're caring for the land, for biodiversity, for soil health levels, to improve methane emissions and reduce those.
Oh, the methane emissions. So what makes up most of the methane emissions? Let's see what she says. See, this is like a media literacy thing. Really pay attention to what these people say, because she still hasn't made an argument yet. Like, if I'm going to say, I don't agree with that metric, I believe that we should use this metric, right? That would be the argument, but she's not doing that. She's just saying, I don't like that metric. It's not fair to big oil and big ag, animal ag. Okay, so what do you think we should be doing to calculate it? What do you think the real numbers are? So she hasn't given that yet, but let's see. She's pivoted to, well, there's things everybody can do to reduce their impact on the planet, which is true. You know what would really help us to cut down our impact on the planet? Decrease the population of the species of human beings. You could, yeah, sure. It's not really saying anything, right? So when you say, well, there's things we could do, like die, stop eating, close farms, produce less food, deindustrialize. Like, yeah, sure, there's less things you can do. It doesn't mean anything. Give us some solutions. Give us something a little bit more concrete.
But it's not nowhere near the sort of culprit that it's painted as being. This is the point I'm really making.
Right, but then you take a look at the planetary impact of monocrops, which are really...
So she's not going to contest anything she just said. She didn't even make an argument. Right? So it's very interesting. Like, we're just going to move on to monocrops now. All right, so we're just accept well, I don't really believe those numbers, and I don't think those numbers are fair. Okay, good enough for me. Let's move on to monocrops. So there was no argument given. There's no real answer to the question. All right, I mean, it's a little rough, but okay. Let's move on to monocrops now. Let's hear it.
The basis of plant-based diets. So, for instance, seed oils or grains and things like that you have to bulk up on selling to the public.
We have to bulk up on grains and seed oils. Really? We have to bulk up on grains and seed oils, whatever bulk up means. We have to bulk. So wait a minute. So in our diet, we eat just as much seed oils as we do whole grains. We just got to bulk up on both. When you say bulk up, what do you mean by that? Do you mean like the amount of oil you use is the same amount of grams as grains? Is it an equivalent amount? When you say bulk, are you implying volume, weight, caloric value? What exactly are we talking about? Like, yeah, we need to eat, I don't know, we need to eat, let's say, 24 ounces of whole grains per day and 24 ounces of seed oils in order to fulfill our nutritional goals. What does that mean, bulk up? It's very interesting, but let's continue.
Public if they are going to choose to not eat meat. And you do an excellent job talking about how that leads to soil degradation, and we pretend that that's not even a thing. I didn't write it down, but there's a TED Talk that you suggest that I went and looked up, that the man, and now it's been
might have been Alan Savory. Was it Alan Savory?
About the man in Africa who uses livestock to regenerate.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to link to that in the show notes. So now we've sort of looked away from these types of solutions. Can you talk about soil degradation of monocrops by monocrops?
Yeah. So what we...
So wait a minute, we're going to skip. So now we're going to talk about monocrops and soil degradation. Are you sure? Because this argument doesn't help animal agriculture. So you mean monocrops like what? Corn? Soybeans? Wheat? And then, so for example, corn, which is the 40% of all the corn grown is used to feed animals, livestock, 40%. And then 36% is used for biofuel. So you understand that if you want to do more livestock, then you're going to end up growing more corn to feed the livestock. Now, if you don't want to produce the corn to feed the livestock, well, then how do you feed the livestock? Oh, grass-fed beef. Oh, okay. So deforestation then. So what we're going to do is we're going to knock down the forests. We're going to obliterate the rainforests and stuff like that. We're just going to knock all the trees down and everything like that. And we're going to get rid of the root networks under the ground that the trees established. So we're just going to have dirt with just grass on top. And there's just going to be thousands or whatever of cows roaming around. And so we can just have this nice extensive burger diet. We're just going to knock down the forest so we can have more burgers. All right, cool. So we have a problem with soil degradation, but not deforestation. That's very peculiar. We got to destroy the ecosystem so that we can have grass-fed burgers. soil degradation. I'm actually shocked, right? I really am. And we're going to blame it on monocrops rather than the deforestation or the animal agriculture, which is extremely intensive on land. That is very interesting to me. All right. So this is the thing, right? If you're against the monocrops, well, how do you cut down on the monocrops without that negatively impacting animal agriculture and your ability to sustain it, because you need the monocrops to feed the animals? Did you not think about this? I mean, all right, let's see. Maybe she can clean it up. Maybe she can teach me something I didn't know. But okay, let's continue.
Done with industrial farming methods, monocrop farming, which we introduced around about the 1950s, depending on where you are in the world, is we got huge yields out of that. But in the process, we were slowly, gradually reducing the health of the soil every year because of the use of external inputs, nitrogen fixing inputs, fossil fuel based fertilizers and pesticides and all of those things. What they've created is a very weak, a very undernourished soil, which has resulted in undernourishment of the plants, which then gives us less nourishment. So it's a terribly vicious circle.
Wait a minute, but what do you mean the plants that gives us nourishment? But you're advocating to feed the crops to the animals for the nourishment. So this doesn't make any sense. I'm actually shocked, but I think so when they do these interviews, they expect for people to not know better. And to be fair, most people don't know, right? So most people don't know that like the biggest monocrop is corn, right? It's like corn and soy, mostly fed to like chickens, pigs, and a variety of other different animals. Now the thing is that if you're gonna cut down on growing the corn to feed the animals in animal agriculture, and you're going to just do free range grass fed or whatever, okay, fine, but you need to require way more land to do that. So if you need way more land to do that, then you're going to have to do more deforestation in order to come up with the land, which means you have to spend more money on the land, right? And then you have to spend more money on upkeeping the land and monitoring the animals. And guess who's going to be picking up the tab for those expenses? And I haven't even gotten into the water usage yet. But just on the land usage, that's going to make animal agriculture extremely expensive. Mind you, these are the same people who will complain about inflation at the grocery store. So they're against the monocrops and they're against the inflation. But the thing is that the monocrops are used in order to prevent the inflation. The inflation would actually be a lot higher otherwise. So this argument is a completely irrational argument. She hasn't done the math on any of this.
And you're right that we don't hear about this. Again, because as I said, net zero and carbon emissions has become the number one thing that people talk about. We've got tunnel vision on that, carbon tunnel vision. And that really started around about 2018, 19.
Look at all that empty land. Look at all of that. They're showing you all this empty land. Wouldn't it be beautiful if you can set up vertical agriculture and farming more fruits and planting fruit trees and whatnot, to have a more fruit-based agricultural system? By the way, what I advocate for is a fruit-dominant diet. And a fruit-dominant diet is the most environmentally friendly diet you can have. It damn sure is not a monocrop. I don't have to keep paving over the soil repeatedly, engaging in soil erosion, if I'm getting all of my food from trees and bushes and vines, etc. Right? So, but okay.
I think, when we started to talk about net zero. And so we seem to be obsessed by that, and we're forgetting about this other huge catastrophe which is going on in the world, which is soil degradation and desertification, which is something that Alan Savory does talk about is that's when all your soil just simply becomes like dust and you have nothing growing there and it blows away and then you can't absorb water and that's why you have floods and the whole thing again is a vicious cycle.
You know why you have floods is when you knock down the forests that regulate the weather. The forests and the trees serve as a buffer to keep your soil from being washed away so you don't get all kind of landslides and hurricanes and whatnot destroying the place. Trees and forests, they have networks of roots that hold the soil together and maintain the integrity of the soil. And the soil gives to the trees, and then the trees give back to the soil. It's a cycle. Right? So, I mean, if this is really a thing she has a problem with, you probably shouldn't be advocating for an industry that requires deforestation.
So if we can reverse that desertification, we can do a whole lot for the planet. We can start to absorb more of that carbon. So we sort of solve two problems in one, as it were. And I would just love to see more focus on that and see more people putting their money behind that.
Now, one of the things on Alan Savory's talk called How to Fight Desertification and Reverse Climate Change is that the TED organization has since marked it as controversial because what he said was that he was able to use livestock, move them around these places that were showing terrible desertification. And because now there's this ideological capture against ruminant animals, they've marked that as political when really it should be.
Is this the official fact checkers? Is this the official statement you're getting?
Yes, if you look on Ted's website under his talk, they've said, well, this is controversial now. It wasn't 10 years ago. And it's a really moving piece about a man who had made really heartbreaking decisions about killing off elephants and things like that. So
he made really big, heart-wrenching decisions about killing off elephants. You know what you could not do? Kill off elephants. How about you leave the elephants alone? Also, are we really going to believe that we reverse desertification with cows? Like, oh, just let the cows just walk through the desert and it'll be a lush forest. Is this what happens? Am I missing something here? Because I'm like, this is a very bold statement to make. Like, oh, you know how you get like grass and trees in a thriving ecosystem? Just let cows walk through and they just move around and then stuff just starts growing. Is that really how it works? I really want her to explain how that whole thing works. I'm very interested.
It is totally political. You take up Eat Lancet, who is the organization that continues to push plant-based diets and show how they are now a political organization more than anything else. Can you talk about that?
Well, I mean, they were formed.
Wait, so we're moving off of the cows growing forests and lush wetlands and stuff? We're not going to explain how that happens? We're moving off from, it's a guy and he just moves cows around and the land just grew and flourished. We're not gonna dive into that. It's a guy and he made hard decisions about butchering elephants and he led cows around. Can you elaborate on that story a little bit, or are we just gonna leave it there? I mean, let's get some follow-up questions here. These are some very strong claims that I'm very interested in. These claims sound insane. But okay, all right.
As a political organization, so they weren't entirely interested in human health or in saving the environment purely in the beginning, and so they're an amalgamation of people. 90% of the people on their commission are already vegetarians or vegans, or affiliated with organizations to do with those two diets. So you already have a bias in what they're going to be recommending. They then have a link up with organizations like the UN Food Commission and the WEF, and therefore they form a kind of group of elite organizations who are looking to change the world in the image that they prescribe, that they think is the best. It's a very top-down image. It's a mistaken image, in my view. But because it's all these organizations that have this supposed authority in the world, a lot of people accept them and say, well, they must be correct. And what people don't realize is that the science underlying their recommendations is not always correct. And so the Eat Lancet diet, for instance, has been shown to be nutritionally deficient. It just does not have enough. And
I really want her to explain what that diet is. Explain what it is, and then explain what the deficiencies are in that specific, because so far she's been completely devoid of any details or an argument at all. There's a lot of vague gesturing and implications and in words, but she hasn't really said anything of any substance in this debate. Well, not debate, in this interview so far. Right? There's been no concrete numbers. There's been no deep explanations of anything, not even remotely. So now, well, at least she can tell us what the Eat Lancet diet is, right? But be specific. When people are saying things and they're not really being too honest, they don't like to get too specific, right? That's a major red flag. I mean, if you're gonna make strong claims like, a guy, he made hard decisions about killing a bunch of elephants and leading cows around the desert. You want to elaborate on that a little bit? Or like, oh yeah, monocrops. You got to bulk up on seed oils. When you say bulk up, what does it mean? Like, let's get some specifics going on here. But okay. So let's see if she elaborates on these deficiencies in the Eat Lancet diet and all that. So let's see.
Themselves have admitted, as I said in the book, and you probably remember this, they admitted that it wasn't suitable for babies or toddlers or teenagers or young adults or pregnant women or frail people, sick people. So you're thinking, well, who is this for, this diet? Who can it possibly be?
Well, do they say who it's for? And why isn't it sufficient for babies or toddlers or underweight people? Or who is it for then? So they admitted who it's not for, but they didn't say who it was for? I don't know if you're being honest about that, but let's see.
It's quite a big list of people who are excluded. It was also shown by a number of analysts to be unaffordable by most of the world. So we do need to think about diets in the context of the different climates in different countries, the different...
Wait a minute. So who is the Eat Lancet? Who is that diet for then? She went through... Now, she did get very specific about who it wasn't for, but she didn't say anything about who it was for. So we're very light on... She decided to be very light on details, but not on those details. That she decided to get real specific about, which is very interesting, right? So watch out when y'all see these people on these podcasts. Really pay attention, because the media literacy, we got to have it these days, because folks, they be out here getting a little sketchy. But okay, so we're going to move on. So no, we're not going to actually verify these claims. By the way, the Eat Lancet diet is not even a vegan diet. It's 20% meat and 14% fish. So you see how I have to do these reviews because I have to give you the information that they won't tell you. Right, about the monocrops, what the monocrops are used for. They didn't say anything about deforestation. So we're going to talk about soil degradation and the environment and reducing emissions, but we're not going to talk about deforestation. Kind of odd. These things are directly and very specifically directly correlated to these issues, but you wouldn't bring them up. That's kind of odd. The Eat Lancet diet. You know that diet that's not a vegan diet? Right? Okay. If the diet is 34% animal products it seems to me that it wouldn't really be considered to be a plant-based diet or even a plant-based con. She didn't mention that. Okay, all right.
Cultures, the different economic circumstances. And if a diet, there simply is no one prescriptive diet that will fit.
Hold on. She said the diet is not affordable by most of the world, right? That's what she said. The diet is not affordable for most of the world. Now let's see. Let me look up something here right quick. Because I'm like, well, when you say it's not affordable for most of the world, let's look at how much of the world is food insecure. How much of the world is food insecure? Let's see. Because what is she going to make the case? People can't afford to eat plant-based, but they can afford to eat grass-fed beef. Is that the argument here? According to the United Nations, 2.4 billion people, or 29.6% of the global population, experience moderate or severe food insecurity in 2022. This is an increase of 122 million people since 2019. Additionally, 900 million people face severe food insecurity, and more than 3.1 billion people, or 42% of the world's population, were unable to afford a healthy diet. Right? So this was by the WHO, the World Health Organization. But I just looked this up right quick. So she decided, hey, let me cherry pick this particular diet and say it's an unaffordable diet. Food in general, a healthy diet in general, seems to be unaffordable by a large population of the world. But she's not getting into the specifics about what it is in the diet that specifically isn't affordable. Is it the oats that are too expensive? Is it the rice that's too expensive? Is it black beans that's too expensive? What are the foods that are so expensive that people can't afford? She doesn't say. Interesting. Okay. Do I believe that Eat Lancet said that about their own diet? I don't think so, no. I don't trust her on that, but I mean, you know, I'll look it up later, but I'm not really buying that, but okay.
The whole world. So the very idea on which these organizations are based, to me, seems problematic. The idea that you can centrally dictate and determine what is best for every single person on the planet.
Now, this was interesting to me, thinking about who is in power promoting what diet, was the history of the food pyramid in the United States and how it goes back to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And the woman who had a vision about this had her book prescribed by one of the Kellogg family. Yeah. And that leads us to where we are today. I found that really fascinating. Can you give us a little synopsis of it? And then again, I'm going to ask my readers to read it for themselves.
Sure.
Interesting. So the food pyramid is what led us to where we are today. Really? So the average American eats according to the food pyramid. Really? I'm curious. Put an M in the chat if you eat according to the food pyramid. That's very interesting to me. Hold on a second. I gotta wait for some M's to go up in the chat. I'm really interested. I don't see no M's popping up in the chat. Does nobody eat according to the food pyramid? Because they're saying, hey, you know, the Seventh-day Adventists, and that's how we got the food pyramid, and that's why we eat the way that we do now, which is heavy on animal products, even though that's the opposite of the food pyramid. Because you know what? All the food commercials that I see on television, that don't look like the food pyramid, right? Arby's. We have the meats, the Red Lobster commercials, the Burger King commercials, all the steak commercials. So we see nothing but meat, 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 meat. Right? Even Got Milk commercials. But we eat according to the food pyramid. I don't know about that. That's a bit of a tough sell, but okay.
The woman you're talking about is Ellen G. White, who was the founder of the Seventh-day Adventist Church back in 1863, who allegedly had a vision from God about a number of things, but one of those things was the way people were supposed to eat, to be pure. And that was a vegetarian diet. And so henceforth, her writing was based on that principle. And her protege, John Harvey Kellogg, was typing out her documents and helping her distribute her pamphlets, and he absorbed that kind of message. He then went on to found Kellogg's, the great cereal company, to provide food that was not meat, something that would give people their nutrition, he thought, without being sinful, because he thought that meat caused all kinds of sins. And then it didn't stop there, because John Harvey Kellogg founded, he sort of coached and brought on board a number of nutritionists, including one very, very influential dietitian called Lena Cooper, who founded the Dietetic School of America, who wrote the textbook that was used by all these dietitians, and who then started to infiltrate her.
Look at all the specifics they get into. Now she's naming people, Kellogg and Seventh-day Adventist. Look at all the specifics now. Now, when we needed tangibles on her nutrition claims, we didn't get that. But she's talking about Kellogg and Seventh-day Adventists, and you know when they came up with things and why they can't. Now she's getting real detailed. All of a sudden, she's real strong on the details here. That's interesting. Now, this is like a lot of filler that doesn't really particularly matter, right? So Kellogg's, okay, cool. So you eat Kellogg's cereal, all right? And, you know, you eat Kellogg's cereal, and what do you eat it in? Right? So you put the cereal in your bowl, and then what? You just eat dry cereal, or do you load it up with a liquid animal product called milk, which comes from the industry that she advocates for? Kind of undermines the point, but okay.
Sort of her ideas, her books, her proteges infiltrated the U.S. Dietary Guidelines Commission. And so you see that religious influence carrying all the way through to something that we now see in modern day America and around the world as this dietary advice. And there are many people who sit on that guidelines commission today who are also Seventh-day Adventists, also vegetarians, and who share those beliefs which have some origin in religion, not in health and science.
Yet that's not reflected in any of our media or commercials. Y'all ever seen advertisements on television for kiwis and grapefruit? Or watermelon or grapes? We have the grapes. Y'all ever seen that on television? I haven't. All right, okay.
Recently, the American government released a preliminary study saying that processed foods is actually not a contributor to obesity.
I saw that.
And I thought that was hilarious.
Let's pause this. Ultra-processed foods do not cause obesity, says U.S. government's top diet advisors in bombshell review of current evidence. Studies have been biased. Okay, what did they say? What was it that they said did cause these issues? Right? We need a bit more than one clip, right? So they put a quote. They put one quote on the screen. Well, what is the full context of what they actually said? And this is what? Oh, this is from the Daily Mail. Oh, okay. Is the Daily Mail a credible source of information? Because I haven't seen. My understanding is the Daily Mail isn't really that. It's not really that durable of a media outlet. But all right, okay. Let's hear it.
But again, I go back to your research showing just how much corporate influence there is in government dietary recommendations. So I throw that out with the trash now. So who do we trust?
That's the right thing to do.
By the way, I do think that processed foods contribute to obesity and chronic illnesses. That is a thing I believe. So anybody who's saying that, no, I disagree, right? Processed foods, specifically ultra-processed, heavily industrialized foods, yes, those things contribute to or even directly cause chronic illness. That is true. Right, so that's my position on that. But all right, let's continue.
Definitely the right thing to do.
It feels like the right thing to do. And I will say, it's not just about my own health. I have 2 adolescents who are in the throes of their growth phases and their stages of puberty. And I am supremely interested in optimizing that for them. And I don't want any politics in the growth of their bodies. So who would you trust then, if not?
You know what's funny is I don't want any politics. Like, everything is political. And you run a political podcast. I run a political podcast, but I don't want politics in my diet. I mean, everything is political. And you run a political podcast, but you have an aversion to politics. Now, what would make more sense is if you say, hey, I want my dietary choices to align with my politics and to be supported by durable, concrete data that acts as strong evidence for my politics. That's what she should have said. Because it sounds a little ridiculous to have a problem with politics and you run a political podcast. That seems a bit odd, but okay.
Our own governments.
Oh, yeah, that is such a good question. And I get asked that all the time. And I'm quite often stumped because who to trust.
Oh, wait a minute. Let's go back. Hold on. I think I missed something. Hold on.
To your research showing just how much.
Let me go back here. Hold on.
Of America, who wrote the textbook that was used by all these dietitians, and who then started to infiltrate her ideas, her books, her proteges infiltrated the U.S. Dietary Guidelines Commission. And so you see that religious influence carrying advice. And there are many people who sit on that guidelines commission today, share those beliefs, which have some.
Government released a preliminary study saying that processed foods is actually not a contributor to obesity.
I saw that.
And I thought that was hilarious. But again, I go back to your research showing just how much corporate influence there is in government dietary recommendations. So I throw that out with the trash now. So who do we trust?
That's the right thing to do. That's definitely the right thing to do.
It feels like the right.
Oh, hold on, because she's going to ask an important question. And this is really pay attention to this. She asked a very important question. This is phenomenal.
Thing to do. And I will say, it's not just about my own health. I have 2 adolescents who are in the throes of their growth phases and their stages of puberty. And I am supremely interested in optimizing that for them. And I don't want any politics in the growth of their bodies. So who would you trust then, if not our own governments?
Who would she trust? That's the question. Because we've talked a lot, well, they have talked a lot about what she disagrees with. But who does she trust? Who does she agree with then? If all the data and the consensus that we have currently right now is stuff she doesn't agree with, well, then who does she trust as an alternative? What data does she trust? Let's see the answer.
Oh, yeah, that is such a good question. And I get asked that all the time. And I'm quite often stumped because who to trust is a very big question. I think you trust yourself.
Oh, you trust yourself. Are you running the studies? You just trust yourself. Everyone's wrong. I disagree with everyone. But I don't really trust anyone either. Oh, okay, so you don't really believe in anything. You're not forming your conclusions from any kind of studies or data or whatever. You just trust yourself, The person who's not running the studies are collecting the data. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That is phenomenal. Who do you trust? Oh, that's I don't know. I'm stumped. I trust myself. Interesting. So the things about like the deforestation, the environmental degradation and all of that, or what foods you should eat or whatever the case is, what's the ideal way to structure your nutrition? Well, who do you trust? I don't know. I trust myself. The person who's not running the data or the studies. Okay. All right. It's a bit odd. All right.
First of all, so take responsibility for your own health and for really finding out not only what's best for you, but the truth behind some of these studies. So
But how do you find that out though? You don't trust anybody. So if you're going to reject the current data, okay, well, what is your alternative? She doesn't know. Your own beliefs are your internal data? Okay. All right. Well, let's see. Let's see if she can clean this up.
afraid if somebody really wants to be informed, they have to go and look at the study that's being quoted, look at who funded it, decide what influence that might have, look at the...
But what funding do you trust then? Because if you don't trust the government and their funding, well, then what funding do you trust? Do you trust corporate funding? And what corporate interests do you trust then?
Conclusions and look at some of the data to see if it matches. And if it doesn't, or if you don't have time to do that, by the way, there are other people that do it for you. So there's a woman who does this every Monday. Her name's Zoe Harcum, Dr. Zoe Harcum. She is a godsend because she takes every one of these studies, or most of the important ones, and she dissects them for us and really does a full, thorough analysis. And what you begin to realize on reading her documentation and her website, which is the best £50 you'll ever spend for a year, by the way, if you want to be really educated, is...
Oh, wait a minute. So this woman wrote a book on the plant-based con, but she has to go to somebody else to interpret the data that she doesn't trust. So she's saying you have to be responsible for your own data collection. She doesn't really agree with any of the studies that are currently out, but she's also going to somebody else to provide an interpretation of the data. But she trusts them. She just said she didn't trust anybody, but she trusts this person that she named who charges £50 to interpret studies. This is not sounding very coherent. Okay.
You realize that 99% of these studies are trash.
Yeah.
Absolute trash. So then, where do you go for health information? You look for what I call mechanisms. So try and understand.
Oh, you go for mechanisms. Okay. I can kind of agree with that. But she says 99% of the studies are trash. So all of the scientists, the whole scientific community is just filled with idiots who don't know how to run studies. So this woman, well, she's smart enough to know that all of the studies, 99% of the studies are not durable. She knows more than everybody else. You know, all of the scientists and researchers, all of our academics, the whole scientific field, you know, where they dedicate their lives to running studies that are like 10, 12, 15, 20, 75 years long. They're just a bunch of idiots who don't know how to run studies. But this woman who wrote this book and this other woman who's charging £50 to interpret data, they've got the keys to science. All right, okay.
Understand not this high-level epidemiology, which is so misleading, but go to the people who write about what the body needs and what foods that comes in.
So epidemiology, let's just dismiss epidemiology. Now, it would make sense to be like, oh, you know, just forget all of this high-level epidemiology. You know, that stuff that's inconvenient for the narrative that I'm pushing. It just dismiss all of that. You know, the evidence that is inconvenient for what we're saying, just dismiss all of it. Whatever's inconvenient or conflicts with what I'm saying, just dismiss all of that stuff. And just focus on the mechanisms that I think are valid. Okay.
And, you know, for instance, there's a fantastic psychiatrist called Dr. Georgia Ede. I mentioned her in the book, and she's got a new book out. She writes about all the things that brains need, healthy brains.
By the way, I did a review of one of Georgia Ede's videos. She's not educated in nutrition at all. She doesn't know that the body creates DHA. She doesn't know which nutrients are the primary nutrients that are actually important for things like mental and emotional health and all of that type of stuff. I mean, she thinks cassava is, you know, a public health threat because of cyanide poisoning, right? So she's not even educated on how cassava is prepped in the process of making it edible, right? She doesn't have any of the data to actually demonstrate that cassava actually does cause increases in cyanide poisoning and is actually causing chronic illnesses in the populations that consider. She didn't have any of that data, but she's making those claims. So this is these are the people that she's relying on. Okay.
Where do you find those? You find them in certain foods, and here's the clue: it's not plant foods.
Right.
Oh, it's not plant foods. Here's the clue: it's not plant foods. You know, all the food that you need for your health, they're not plant foods. And any of the data that tells you otherwise is not true. You know what's amazing is me. I've been plant-based for 11 years. You know, I'm so nutrient deficient. Right? I mean, clearly, look at me, right? I got all of these deficiencies, you know, not eating any kind of animal products for a whole 11 years, over a decade, with my really unhealthy diet, with all of these nutrients that I'm not getting. I'm sure she's going to name some of those nutrients. Let's hear it.
She describes the actual medical pathways, the biological pathways from point A to point B in terms of brain health and how these foods contribute. To me, that's what you can trust. You can trust something like that, which is giving you the biology, not the epidemiology.
The biology, not the epidemiology. The question is, what came first? The biology or the epidemiology? The people who are conducting the studies, the epidemiological studies, what data do you think they're using if not biological data? I don't think she knows what epidemiology is. I don't think she's read any of these studies, because if she did, she wouldn't say that. It doesn't make any sense. You need to know the basic biochemical mechanisms of the human body to even put together a study on this stuff. All right.
So basically, that would be a guide. Throw all the epidemiology in the trash.
And also, you take bit by bit a lot of these components of plant-based diets foreign.
By the way, where was all the details? She has all of these nutrients and all the epidemiology. 99%. It's all gobbledygook, right? Just throw it out. She didn't name any studies. She didn't explain any of the flaws that she found and how the studies were conducted. Was it that like the sample size was too small? Is it that the study wasn't done long enough? Was it that they didn't use the right mechanisms? Are you going to give an example of a particular study that you have some type of gripe with? Give us some meat on the bones here. Just 99% is trash. Everybody's dumb except me. Hey, you understand, like, at what point in time does this become narcissism and just like raw delusion? At what point? Because it's kind of obscene to just be like, oh, everybody's an idiot. No one knows what they're talking about. And it's just me and like two other people who actually understand anything in the world. Like, it's a little chill, you know, rein it in a little bit. All right.
Instance, plant-based milks or seed oils or other types of fillers that the human body just doesn't like. And so for me,
The human body just doesn't like plant-based milk or seed oils. What seed oils? Are you talking about black seed oil? Or are you talking about oil of oregano? What oil are you talking about? Are you talking about avocado oil? Are you talking, what kind of oils are we talking? Just any oil just comes from a seed, just the oils, right? No specific. The body just doesn't like it. The body doesn't like what? Hemp milk, almond milk, coconut milk. What plant-based milk does the body just not like? Can you be specific?
I sort of take that as a guideline. And then I will say, I am a fan of those people who do Instagrams or YouTube videos around the grocery store and say, see this, it's got this, and this, it's got this, and that helps. But those are by no means any kind of official organization. It just helps me navigate.
Oh, so she relies on people doing random TikTok and Instagram videos pointing at nutritional labels. All right. I get, just as long as it's not coming from the government. Look, in some cases, the government, you don't really want to believe everything they say. You want to take it as a grain of thought, take it with a grain of salt, and figure out what the motives are and whatnot. So I don't completely disagree. Like, I don't trust the government blindly, but I'm also not going to be like, I don't trust anything that the government has anything to do. I'm not going to go that far, right? But okay, all right.
The processed food grocery market.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if they're official because they're pointing to something you can actually see. It's true. They're saying they hold up a package. There'll be 25 ingredients. There'll be sugar mentioned 10 times sometimes.
Right.
Because these manufacturers, as you know, they were alert to the whole excess sugar warning.
Sugar will be mentioned 10 times. First of all, they're going to mention sugar 10 times. Why would they mention sugar 10 times? So they're just going to mention it 10 times on the whole box. Is it the front? Is it the side? Or what? Okay. I'm probably being a bit too pedantic. Let me not.
And so they have sugar in about 10 different forms in each of their products. So people have to learn.
Hold on, wait a minute. Sugar in 10 different forms, such as? Name the 10, at least name 5. I want to know the names of these sugars so I can look out for those. There's like 10 different forms of sugar, such as?
Learn how to decipher those labels. So I'm with you. I love all these influencers who are doing that. There's one we have here called Eddie Abu, who is just taking the world by storm. He speaks a young language, and he's really reaching people. I find that incredibly heartening.
Yes, I love him too. Now,
just as long as he's not telling people to eat vegetables, those dangerous, devious vegetables.
I guess I'll ask you this, and then I'll let you go. A lot of these diets, a vegan diet or a zone-based diet, or back in the 90s we had low-cal diets. They sort of have a peak and they ebb and flow. Although the study we just mentioned, the U.S. government did say, well, it really is about calories. And I thought, what? That's 30 years ago. We're not going back to that. Do you think, because you mentioned there are so many what you call late stage vegans who just feel terrible trying to follow these guidelines, do you think that it will follow this popularity bell curve and we will maybe see it fade in popularity? Or is there too much institutional capture to let that happen?
Wow.
I love it. Our government is run by vegans. That's the problem. These vegans, they just ransack the government. They control the levers of power, We have the U.S. government, which is the #1 threat to world peace. The world's largest military, the world's largest navy, is in one war after the next. Agent Orange, destroying coups in Libya, Yemen, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Syria, Cuba, Colombia, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Bolivia, right? I can go on and on. Our government, the bloodthirsty, warhawk maniac government, captured by vegans. We're against killing animals, but man, we love killing people. All right. I mean, if she thinks that about our government, I don't know. She may need to learn a couple things about our government. which is weird because she runs a political podcast. So knowing the things that she knows about our government, and you think our government is captured by vegans. Yeah, you know, it's that big spooky broccoli lobby, you know, big broccoli, and they're just taking over our lives. You know, big banana, you know, big kiwi, you know, the grape industrial complex. They're ruining our lives. They're taking away our double bacon cheeseburgers and giving us grapes. All right, let me stop.
There is so much institutional capture, and there's so much capture by the zeitgeist, if I can say that.
Yes.
I don't think in the past, all these diets that you mentioned, Zone or Atkins or any of the others, for instance, or Weight Watchers, they would attract a certain population, but they wouldn't get this kind of mainstream coverage and support. And this diet, the vegan diet, is now supported not by what people claim for health benefits, but this whole argument about the environment, the argument about animal welfare. It's like that three-legged stool. It's pretty sturdy, right? You can't really knock it over as easily as the other diets. So I think it's going to take.
It's almost like there's an abundance of reasons to follow a plant-based lifestyle. It's really difficult to knock over because of all of the epidemiological data supporting it. You know, you got environment, you got ethics, you got animal welfare, you've got health, you know, you got all of these reasons. That's why it's so difficult. It's just supported by all these good reasons and evidence, which is really inconvenient for me, by the way. You know, when I'm trying to really fight for animal agriculture, we need people to be eating more double and triple cheeseburgers. We need more bacon on the plate, you know? Because, you know, we can get those heart attack rates up a bit higher. We just need people to be just eating more burgers. We need more Arby's. We need more gout. That's what we need. We need more deforestation.
Take a while for the heat to die down. But I do think it will die down eventually, because I think people are cottoning on to some of the lies that are being told, and they're cottoning on to the health detriment. Because, you know, people can try any diet they want, and a lot of people will maybe try a vegan diet and they will thrive on that for a certain period of time because they're coming off another terrible diet, the standard American diet, which is pretty awful. But eventually those nutrient deficiencies are going to kick in because they just have to. And there'll be some sort of muscle loss. There'll be a B12 deficiency, which will cause neurological symptoms potentially.
Yeah, like me example. You know, look at how B12 deficient I am. I'm so B12 deficient that I can't sit up here and debunk every single talking point she's made so far. Because, I mean, honestly, I could show all kind of data and whatnot, but, I mean, honestly, she hasn't even made an argument yet. There's nothing for me to really make an argument against because she's arguing against herself. But, you know, that B12 deficiency, you know, I mean, maybe she needs some more B12, right? Because, I mean, you know, for that neurological deficiencies, you know, your brain just don't work enough for you to give, you know, specifics to critique actual studies to show what the flaws are in those studies. You know, when you're talking about environmentalism, to bring up things like deforestation and how that explicitly affects our environment, you know, instead of spinning tales about a guy who was so sad about killing a bunch of elephants and leading cows around a desert, right? It's that B12 deficiency. By the way, I love it because she doesn't know what B12 is. B12 is a postbiotic created by the bacteria in your gut or freshwater bacteria found in our environment. Right? So your gut creates its own B12. Oh, and by the way, about 12 to 15% of the population is B12 deficient, but only 1 to 4% of the population identify as vegan. So if it's 12% overall, but only like, you know, a maximum of like 4% identify as vegan, how do you explain all the B12 deficient meat eaters. It's almost like eating meat is not going to prevent B12 deficiency, and it might be coming from somewhere else, like a compromised gut microbiome as a result of a greasy, fatty, acidic diet and antibiotics that you're getting directly from your doctor's office, and the antibiotics that are shot up into the animals and put in their food that you're then eating. Right? So if we really want to talk about B12, we can talk about it, but we're gonna have to be a little bit more nuanced, and we're gonna have the conversation about the gut microbiome, which these people never like to talk about. But okay, let's continue.
There'll be a vitamin A deficiency, etc., because they won't be able to convert the vitamin A.
Vitamin A, vitamins. Now, it would be great. It would be absolutely great if she had that, epidemiological data so that she could have some evidence for that vitamin A claim. These vegans, they're so deficient in vitamin A. I don't have any evidence for that, but just trust me. Don't trust the epidemiological data, because 99% of it is bunk because I say so. By the way, vitamin A is made inside your body when you consume things like beta carotene. Right? You eat animals, and the animals, their bodies create vitamin A in the same way that yours does. But she doesn't know that because she doesn't know how vitamin A is synthesized. Because she's not educated in nutrition, and she doesn't believe in epidemiology. But, she said, well, I don't really trust in the epidemiology. I look for mechanisms. Oh, you mean like the mechanisms that happen in your body that convert beta carotene into vitamin A? You mean that? You mean those kind of mechanisms? You mean the mechanisms in your gut microbiome that produce B12? You mean those kind of mechanisms? All right.
So eventually those things will happen. And so I think that the vegan diet will have a limited number of proponents naturally set because of that natural limitation in the nutrients. And I do hope that combined with people being...
The natural limitation in the nutrients. You mean just B12 and vitamin A is just those? By the way, that pesky plant-based milk that I was talking about, that contains B12, like nutritional yeast or any fortified foods that contain B12? Or your gut producing it on its own, because, it's a postbiotic. Right? The vitamin A from, things like sweet potato, things like cantaloupe, grapefruit. You mean like that? Carrots. All right.
More aware of some of the misconceptions around the environment. Hopefully that will start to get us talking not about vegan diets or vegetarian diets, but about proper human diets. And this is a phrase which is being used often now. Proper human diet. A diet that we were meant to eat that has everything that we need in it.
Oh, I like that.
Like cheeseburgers. The proper human diet.
I hadn't heard this before. Okay, I'm going to be on the lookout for this new phrase, and I will use it myself. I just ask because, you see in restaurants what's popular and what's not. This weekend I was in England, and I ordered a whole milk latte, and they gave me an oat milk latte, I guess because of my accent.
Right.
And I saw the sticker on the top, and I said, oh no, I'm not drinking this. And I brought it back, and she said, we don't have...
No. I don't want oat milk. I want breast milk from an animal that is a different species from me. I want to suckle from the nipples of cows. I want to drink cow's baby food. I want you to find me a pregnant cow, pull on its nipples or its udders, and get me some milk for my latte. Because, that's a human appropriate diet. where you get your milk from, an animal that's not human. All right. Okay, it's kind of weird. No, 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 no. I don't want anything from plants. It's not violent enough. I need to find a pregnant animal, preferably non-human, and drink from that in a kind of a weird, predatory way, needlessly. Okay, all right.
Have whole milk. It's like, what?
Yeah.
You don't have it. She was only skinny, whatever, whatever. And I said, okay, I'm hoping that this becomes popular now. That let's switch away from this towards this.
Yeah,
So-
but I think it's great if people keep going in and asking for the things that are okay, and don't apologize. Don't apologize for your whole milk, or your butter,
Or your whole milk and your butter that you get from an exploited animal. So using the word your, it's kind of weird to use it that way. When somebody goes to the ATM to withdraw some money, go ahead and get your money. When somebody steps out of the grocery store and they load the groceries up into the trunk, go ahead and get your groceries out of their trunk. It's yours. All right.
or whatever else, And actually, I don't like being a pain at restaurants, but I think I will in future be asking restaurateurs, do you cook this in seed oil or olive oil or butter? Because if it's in seed oil, I don't want it.
Yeah.
And I'll, that.
I don't want it in seed oil. Seed oil. I mean, sure, I want all the extra saturated fat, cholesterol, and heme iron and whatnot that are, group A carcinogens that directly contribute to cancer, heart disease, excess, homocysteine, interstitial fluid buildup, things that later on lead to things like high blood pressure, gout, edema, diabetes, kidney disease. Seed oil is where I draw the line. By the way, my position is I tell people not to cook with oil. So, but the thing is, I don't just don't cook with any oils, period. Right? Because it's the same for butter and it's the same for any kind of oils. When you heat it up past its smoke point, it gets oxidized and destroyed on a molecular basis due to the thermogenesis, right? That thermogenesis oxidizes the oil. And the thing about oxidated things is your body is always trying to get rid of anything that is oxidized. So when you oxidize something and then you put it in your body, you're doing the opposite of what your body wants to do. Oxidized things are supposed to be removed from the body, not put into the body. This is the reason why fried foods are so problematic and unhealthy. And we all agree, fried foods are bad for your health, right? Gee, I wonder why. But she would know that because, that's in those mechanisms that she was talking about before. Right? We love mechanisms. We don't like epidemiology, but we love mechanisms. I wonder if she knows about those mechanisms.
Might be a good way to register with them that that's not such a healthy option.
There you go. Okay. Well, I'm in it with you. We're looking to promote proper human diets. Thank you again for your book. Thank you for your time and coming on Redacted. I want to.
All right. So that was very interesting. So yeah, we got a pretty thorough breakdown of that video there. But there's a greater pathology at work here, right? You'll have these people, and they have a cultural pathology, right? And the cultural pathology is there's a need to bake violence and destruction into every facet of life, right? The only reason why there's this crusade against plant-based eating is because it's not violent enough. It's not destructive enough. You're not killing enough animals. That's why they sound ridiculous, right? If you want to know why they sound like lunatics, that's why. It's because it's a violent, destructive culture. right? It's like, oh, what? Oat milk instead of cow's milk? Where's the exploitation? Where's the violence, right? What I want you to do is get a cow pregnant and then take its babies away and then milk her and take all of the milk that was supposed to go to her baby and take that milk from her, deny it to her baby, butcher her baby so that you can get beef burgers, and then use the milk that you stole from her and kept from her baby, turn it into cheese, and then put it as slices in between the beef patties that come from the mother and the baby's corpse. And then what you do is you butcher some cows, and then you slice off flesh from their body in these little strips. And then you fry it in butter, because we don't do seed oils. No. We need more violence. And then what you do is you fry the flesh strips that you murdered the pig for. We're going to call it bacon because flesh strips doesn't sound good. It's not marketable. We can't say corpse patties, so we got to call it beef patties, right? We got to call it burgers. Call it something that sounds not so bad, right? Make up a name like bacon. And you take that bacon from the pig corpse and then you put it on top of the corpse patties from the mother and the baby with the slices of the cheese in between. And then we just eat that. And of course, we have to have an abundance of this stuff because we need protein and we need dairy for strong bones. So let's knock down all the rainforest. Let's knock down all the trees. Let's deforest the planet. And then what we're going to do is we're going to lead cows through the desert. And magic will happen. The cows, they'll just keep walking and shitting and walking and shitting and walking and shitting. And as they shit, they leave a trail of shit. And then trees and grass bloom out of the cow feces. And this is how you greenify a desert so that we can keep butchering them, right? So basically we're killing them and they're shitting, and then we're killing them and then they're shitting, and then they're having babies, and then we're killing the babies and collecting the shit and spreading it around. And what we want to do is we want to knock down the forest and spread cow feces all around, right? So that we can re-greenify all the land we just destroyed, because we need to keep perpetuating the production and slaughtering of cows and their babies and drinking from them and all types of weird stuff. You think that sounds normal? That sounds insane. That is lunatic culture. It's like, or you could just eat some fruit that, grows from a tree. Fruit from a tree? What do you want to be scrawny? You need violence. You need mass exploitation and environmental destruction and feces. Lots and lots of feces. Right? Sounds insane. So you got to get the milk from them. You got to get the feces from them. You got to cut meat off their backs and slaughter them and all of that. But, look. She's got a podcast to do. So she's not going to go and be slaughtering animals herself. We got to import poor and desperate people from another country and then shove them into slaughterhouses so that they can get PTSD in the process of killing all the animals, so that we can continue to eat our double and triple cheeseburgers and do podcasts talking about why we shouldn't eat vegetables. You understand the sickness in that culture? Do you understand? So when you have Juan Calito from the slaughterhouse, and he gets PTSD from killing all these screaming animals and getting massively underpaid, getting nickeled and dimed on his paycheck, and then getting called an illegal or whatever, right? And then he's got to go back across the border and then live in poverty from being massively underpaid for his PTSD development. She gets to go and benefit from his labor and do podcasts about why we should not only keep that going, but expand it as much as we possibly can. Don't let those pesky forests and ecosystems get in the way. Just bulldoze all of that, right? You know all of these animals and all these animals that live in those habitats? Just set it on fire. Knock it down. They'll leave and go somewhere else. And then as we knock down the forests, we can push all the animals into the street, where we can then drive through the night and just hit them. So we can have roadkill all over the streets because we're knocking down every natural habitat that they sought refuge in. Does any of that sound normal? This doesn't seem great to the environment. I don't want the deforestation pushing the animals into the street while I'm driving. How about we not do that? Right? Oh man, how come Haiti is constantly getting hit by all of these nasty storms and getting wiped out? In you know, all these crazy earthquakes and all of this nasty weather and stuff. What's going on with that? Probably because of all the deforestation. Oh, what happened to all of this CO2 emissions is just getting worse, and the planet is just getting more acidic, and you know, the climate's getting worse and all of this, and natural habitats are dying, and the coral reef is bleaching and all. What's happening? Gee, I wonder why. Well, when you do the deforestation, the forest of this thing, what do people call the forest? They call the forest, they call it the lungs of the planet. So yeah, when you knock down the lungs of the planet, well, guess what happens to the planet? Oh, but that's exaggerated. So what, we're just bulldozing whole rainforests, stripping the land? So what? That's not, hey, you know, even though you're just uprooting and destroying whole ecosystems, it's not like that's gonna do anything to the environment, because, you know, cause and effect don't exist, and those pesky forests don't serve a purpose, apparently. Because we need cheeseburgers. We need 24-piece buffalo wings. And we can't be using none of this seed oil. We need milk too. We eat the animals, we drink from the animals, we collect their poop. We just ride these animals in this ultra lunatic pathological way. These pesky vegans are ridiculous, aren't they? They care about like forests and PTSD and the environment. Oh. The problem is corn. It's the monocrops. It's the corn. You know, the corn that is used to feed the animals that I'm advocating we eat from? It's not the animal agriculture. It's the crops that's produced to sustain the animal agriculture. Don't let that pesky concept of cause and effect get to you. Just put that out of your mind. It's not relevant. Cause and effect it's not a real thing. Just like that pesky epidemiology. Right? So here in the US, right, we have no shortage of, you know, various Europeans on podcasts with each other. And they're telling us how we need to eat more animals, we need to knock over more rainforests, we need to eat more meat, and vegetables are trying to kill us, right? We see them on the podcast. But they don't exist in a vacuum. Sure, they're advocating for the most violent foods. We need a diet filled with as much violence as possible. Right? Taking little baby chicks and running them through a meat grinder. Right? So we can get chicken nuggets. Right? And, you know, we need a 24-piece buffalo wing, so you know how many birds we gotta kill. Right? So yeah, they advocate for a diet of violence on YouTube, and they make their rounds around all the food violence advocates. And then we have a government where they're like, yo, you know, let's start a new war. Let's bomb some folks. And then whatever wars we start, let's keep them going as long as possible. And then when those pesky vegans get out in the street and protest the wars we're keeping going, Let's sick the police on them, right? Oh, you're bombing tens of thousands of children on the other side of the planet. Oh, what, you have a problem with that? Police, get them. Send them packing. My point is, the violence is the point. Some people advocate for it in the food system. Some people advocate for it directed directly at people as opposed to cows or chickens. But it all stems from this pathological culture, particularly that we have here in the West, what they call the West, right? It's this culture of violence, whether it be pollution from chemical plants, whether it be pollution from fracking, where we have places in our country like, Cancer Alley. When you get a chance, go on Google and type in Cancer Alley and see what you find out, right? Where they get like environmentalists and lawyers like Steve Donziger, and he basically takes Exxon to court and wins on behalf of Ecuadorians, and a judge throws him in confinement, house arrest for years in his own home, right? Or when our government persecutes whistleblowers because they're like, hey, our government's committing war crimes. that pesky epidemiology we should dismiss. Well, yeah, apparently our government believes we should dismiss whistleblowers too. Why? Because we need to protect the violent culture. So whether the violence is in your food or otherwise, it's all stemming from the same place. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a cultural pathology here. And we have to speak about it in those terms. Everything is political. Right? You don't get to engage in mass violence on an extreme level and think that that's going to be consequence-free. It doesn't work like that. There's always a price to pay. So, I'll get off my soapbox. I know that was kind of heavy, but there was a point for me doing this review. So I appreciate everybody joining me tonight. Everything from the totter to the tutor. Even calling it meat instead of animal flesh. You know what I'm saying? Yep, they have a sociopathic, historic culture. They can't help themselves. They get a hard-on from inflicting violence towards others, other beings, and destroying every environment and ecosystem they discover. In quotes, discover. Take away the animal food that are vegetarian, will they die from starvation? For the exception of animals that eat flesh, if it runs out, what will be used for meat? I don't know if I really understand the question, but human beings are not good at regulating the population of other animals, okay? So I don't really know what you mean by taking away animal food that are vegetarian. How about leave them alone? How about coexist with other living beings on the planet, right? Coexist peacefully with other living beings on the planet. It shouldn't be that hard, right? You don't have to farm them and exploit them and commit all kinds of heinous violence against them. First of all, you can't have, there's billions of us. And we can't just have billions of us, moving around the planet like a zombie horde, looking for other living beings to enact tremendous amounts of violence on until there's nothing left. This is what zombie movies are about, by the way. So we can't just be this carnivorous horde burning through whole ecosystems perpetually. It's just not sustainable. We're not carnivores. If we were carnivores, our population would be a lot less than it is. Okay? Carnivores are not supposed to exist in large numbers. All right. Does a high raw vegan diet damage teeth? No, if anything, it helps to improve teeth. I would know. I mean, my teeth are doing quite well. My teeth are actually doing better now than they were before I went plant-based. W Stream, thank you. Appreciate you. Absolutely. Hit mad cow disease. Look at the mad human disease. The idiocracy. True. That's right. Us plant chompers, we have the arguments. We have solid arguments. We ain't going nowhere. So, all right, y'all. I'm not going to keep y'all here all night. Appreciate you for coming through, and I'll catch you on the next Monday Night Live stream.